Today, we're dissecting the assessment protocol. This isn't just a set of guidelines, it's a non-negotiable enforcement mechanism. It's the absolute bedrock of quality for the Safe House project, and we're about to understand exactly why it has to be so uncompromising.
All right, here's our descent plan. We'll start with the why, the integrity mandate. Then, uncompromising data control, the three-part assessment triad, the stress testing of adversarial self-auditing, the rules for evidence and boundaries, and we'll finish with the final authority. Let's get started.
So, first things first, the integrity mandate. To really get why this protocol is so intense, you have to understand the specific threat it was built to eliminate. And trust me, this isn't some abstract problem. This was born from a very real and very insidious danger. And here it is. This quote says it all. The biggest danger to a knowledge base like this isn't some hacker trying to break in. No, it's silent corruption from within. What you're reading here is a real-world incident. An AI, Codex, was looking for a file, couldn't find it, and what did it do? It just made something up. A completely fabricated, hallucinated analysis that looked real. And worse, it saved it and committed it to the repository. That right there, that's what's called an AI hallucination, and it is the single most critical point of failure we have to defend against.
So, how do you fight that? The answer has to be absolute. The guiding principle for the entire Safe House project is just two words: zero mistakes. And let me be clear, this isn't some feel-good mission statement. It's not an aspirational goal. It is a hardline, non-negotiable operational requirement. And the protocol we're breaking down today, that's the enforcement.
Okay, so how do you actually enforce zero mistakes? Well, that's the job of the Domain Assessment Protocol. Think of it as this uncompromising audit that looks at every single document from three different angles. First, there's maturity. Is it even built correctly? Then accuracy. Is what it's saying actually true? And finally, coverage fidelity, which is basically a measure of honesty. Does it admit what it doesn't know?
All right, let's get into the first layer of defense: uncompromising data control. See, before you can even think about assessing the quality of information, you have to lock down the environment where that information lives. We're talking about controlling AI access at the most basic level, the repository.
The protocol starts with one simple, powerful rule. Every AI agent is treated as a risk. By default, they are all denied the ability to write anything. No creating files, no changing files, nothing. This is the read-only default, and it's a direct firewall against what happened with Codex. If an AI can't find an answer, this rule makes damn sure it can't just invent one and write it into the system's memory. So what if you do need to make a change? Well, it's not easy. It's a very deliberate four-step process with a human right in the middle. First, you need explicit intent, a formal request. Second, that request hits a human gate. A real person has to review it and personally execute the prompt. Third, the change itself has to be a surgical edit. We're not talking about broad strokes, we're talking about precision. And fourth, every single edit gets a changelog entry explaining what happened and why. There is zero automation in this process. Every single write operation is intentional and human approved. And this gets to the heart of the discipline here. No silent edits, period. No untracked changes. Every single modification, down to a single character, has to be traceable. It has to be mapped to a specific finding. This creates a perfect, unbroken audit trail, ensuring that the history of the knowledge is just as solid as the knowledge itself. Okay, so the data layer is locked down tight. Now we can actually talk about the assessment. Every piece of information gets scrutinized through three different, completely independent lenses. This is what we call the assessment triad. So those three pillars are maturity, accuracy, and coverage fidelity. Let's make this simple. Maturity is all about internal structure. Is the document well built? Does it cite its sources? Does the logic hold up? Accuracy? That's the external check. We don't care how good it looks, we care if it's true. Do the claims trace back to hard data like a primary source file or a test? And then there's coverage fidelity. This one's about intellectual honesty. Does the document clearly state its own limits? Does it tell you where its knowledge stops?
Now you might be asking, why separate them like this? Why not just have one score? Well, it's to find the one thing that can poison an entire knowledge base, the authoritative but wrong document. This is the nightmare scenario. It's a document that scores high on maturity. It's beautifully written, perfectly structured, totally convincing, but it's based on a complete falsehood. It's the most dangerous kind of misinformation precisely because it looks so right.
And this is exactly why composite scores are absolutely forbidden. You cannot roll these three metrics together into one number. Think about it. A document with 100% maturity but 0% accuracy could get a passing grade if you just average them out. It completely masks the critical failure. Mixing these scores together totally destroys the diagnostic signal. You lose the ability to see the danger, so each metric stands alone.
So we've covered how we lock down the data and how we assess it. But that's still kind of passive. The next level is active validation, adversarial self-auditing. This is where we actually pit different systems against each other to deliberately stress test the entire knowledge base. Here's a perfect example of that in action. It's called the 3-mirror minimum rule. We took the AI Explorer project and had 3 different LLMs review it: Claude, Codex, and Gemini. And look what happened. Claude found function call errors. Codex flagged fragility concerns. Gemini spotted timing edge cases. Not one of them caught everything. By pitting them against each other like this, you prevent something called cascade bias. You make sure the blind spot of one AI doesn't become the blind spot of the whole system.
The other side of this adversarial coin is a principle called terminal grounding. This is huge. It's designed to stop what I call the scripture interpreting scripture problem, where documents just cite other documents which cite other documents in an endless loop that's completely disconnected from reality. Terminal grounding says no. Every single citation chain has to be traced all the way back to its ultimate source.
Which leads to the most important question this whole protocol forces you to ask. Where does the evidence chain actually end?
And the answer is non-negotiable. The chain has to end in empirical reality. It cannot end with someone's interpretation in another document. It has to bottom out in a primary source. We're talking a direct script trace, a config verified value, or an instrument-tested result. The proof must come from the machine itself, not from another human-written document.
Okay, now we're getting into the deepest layers of the protocol: evidence and boundaries. This is where it gets really rigorous, because it's not just about what you know, it's about being brutally honest about how you know it, and more importantly, what you don't know.
See, a core principle here is that evidence is not monolithic. Not all proof is created equal. The kind of claim you make dictates the standard of evidence required. So a simple static claim, like a vehicle's fuel capacity, you can just verify that in a config file. Easy. But a behavioral claim, like how engine damage works, oh no, that requires direct, instrumented testing. And then there's the hardest claim of all, proving something doesn't exist.
And that brings us to negative evidence compliance. This is a brilliant rule. It says that if you want to claim something doesn't happen, say, this system does not do X, that's treated as a positive claim. You have to prove it. You have to show your work with a fully documented, exhaustive negative search. The classic example with the myth that running a car without oil caused engine damage. A full documented trace of the code proved there was no such mechanic. The absence of evidence became the evidence, but only because the search was complete.
And that leads us to the ultimate expression of intellectual honesty in this system, the proto-boundary. This is the documented confidence ceiling. It's the line in the sand where visibility ends, where the scripts we can see stop, and the engine's native C++ code, the black box, begins. And here's the kicker. The protocol actively rewards documents for acknowledging this boundary. It punishes false certainty. It's a structural enforcement of epistemic humility, of being honest about the difference between what is known and what is just a guess.
So, after all of that, all these rules, all these layers of control and verification, what does it all serve? It all points to one thing: the final authority.
And this is it. In SafeHouse, the final authority is not consensus. It's not what the community believes. It's not a developer's opinion. It's not even the most elegant logic an AI can produce. The final authority is, and always will be, empirical instrument-tested measurement. If a test contradicts a theory, the test wins. Every time. The entire assessment protocol we've just walked through exists for one single purpose: to ensure that the Atlas remains an uncorrupted source of truth. Because in this system, truth isn't what feels right or what sounds plausible. Truth is what is measured.